Schneider Electric is the proud sponsor of this podcast series. A core value for Schneider, for both its employees and customers, is to learn every day. They trust the following will provide some learning for you today.
My name is Jo Taranto and I'm joined today by Andrew Ward, Research Fellow at the Australian Centre for Water and Environmental Biotechnology at the University of Queensland. And we're talking about transforming regional wastewater treatment using high-rate algae ponds. That's quite a mouthful. Yeah. Welcome, Andrew.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Andrew, in your research, you're constantly looking for either new technology or optimising existing processes. How widespread are algal ponds in wastewater treatment?
Well, lagoon-based treatment, which is primarily used in regional areas, has been around for approximately 100 years. It hasn't really changed a lot, and in Australia it's not economical to build a big treatment plant, so these are used because of the cheapness. Roughly there's over 600 in Australia. Probably 70% of our treatment plants are these small lagoon-based treatments. The biggest one would probably be Werribee in Melbourne, and also Northern Territory are heavily based lagoon treatment plants. So
we tend to see them in more regional areas. Why is that?
Well, they have more land there, and because of the smaller populations, it's just not viable to build a large mechanised plant. The cost is just too much for too small a population base. So these are, they've got a bit more room out there. These ponds are left to do the work.
And it is obviously quite old technology and a process, but do you still see a role for this kind of wastewater remediation in Australia?
Initially there probably was, but as I said, this is getting outdated technology. We know a lot more now. We know we've got poor treatment coming from them. They accumulate sludge, which reduces their holding capacity, which reduces their treatment capacity as well. That sludge accumulates and gives off a lot of greenhouse gases and odour issues, and they're also prone to cyanobacterial blooms, which can be a health hazard. And also because the water sits there for a long period of time, up to 60 days, we get a lot of evaporation. So that makes the water more salty, which makes it less useful for irrigation. So as things have developed, we can see that there's more issues with them. And with increasing population, that again is putting more pressure on these systems, and they're just starting to not cope.
So your research has looked at ways that you could improve this. You've looked at the benefits of integrating two systems, really. Can you explain what you've learned?
So we've looked at the biological processes that happen in a lagoon treatment system, because they do treat water to an extent. So that sludge that accumulates in the bottom is actually anaerobic, so that works like your compost heap. Your organics go in there, they break down, and all the nutrient become bioavailable to the algae. But in that process, they give off methane, biogas, and CO2. So that's a big issue at the moment. So what we've done is we've taken that anaerobic component and we've put it into a bioreactor and what we call a USAB, anaerobic digester, and upflow anaerobic sludge blanket digester. And that's a very high treatment process. So we can treat water in that within about 24 hours, and we separate the liquid and the solids in that reactor. So the liquid goes through very fast and the solids settle and accumulate and break down. So what that does is it's a quick process. We can actually capture the methane. So instead of it bubbling out the top of a pond, we can actually capture it. We can flare that methane and convert it to CO2 to destroy it. Or at a larger plant, we can run a cogen plant and generate electricity from it. So that's one process. And then the water from that process then feeds into high-rate algal ponds, where we've got shallow ponds that are mixed with a paddle wheel. And this is to optimise the algae growth. So the algae grows really fast, and a normal lagoon-based system, you're looking at a 60-day retention time. With this system, we're looking at 10 to 12 days to completely treat the water. We get much better total solids destruction through the anaerobic digestion process. We also produce valuable algae biomass from the system, which we can use for other purposes. And we don't accumulate sludge in this process. So a lot of lagoon plants, they accumulate this sludge. It's really bad for the environment because of the greenhouse gases, and it's very expensive to remove it. So we remove those costs as well of actually desludging lagoons.
You're listening to the Australian Water Association podcast series, and I'm speaking with Andrew Ward from the Australian Centre for Water and Environmental Biotechnology. So does this form part of a net zero approach potentially for a lot of utilities? And how does it reduce the greenhouse gases? You've mentioned some of the ways already.
So it wasn't initially formulated to tackle greenhouse gases. We were looking at it from a treatment perspective and meeting discharge licence limits. As I said, some of these plants aren't working the best at the moment, but things have evolved, and the Carbon Office at the moment have actually released an incentive to get rid of these anaerobic ponds and replace them with digesters. They're putting carbon credits there. If you actually flare the methane, you can get credits, and they're giving incentives to get rid of these anaerobic ponds. So the government's also come on board with that. But basically, by doing all that in a fixed vessel, like a contained vessel, we're producing all that methane. We're actually capturing it. So we can actually got it coming out of one outlet, and that allows us to, as I said, either feed it into a cogeneration plant to generate electricity. Because of these regional plants are quite small, they probably don't produce enough methane to actually do that. So we can actually flare it where we burn it, and then that reduces the harmful methane to a less harmful CO2. And we're actually eliminating the methane coming from the ponds.
Can you use this technology for other wastewater applications?
Yes, definitely. So not only have I been looking at domestic sewage, I have done research on other wastewaters as well, and higher strength wastewaters. And yes, it can definitely be transferred to the agricultural industry, meat processing industries, where they also use this lagoon type based technology to treat wastewater. So there is a big opportunity in other industry sectors for this technology.
There must be a fair amount of interest in this, Andrew, because it does sound much more efficient than what we've previously been doing.
Yeah.
What do the numbers tell us?
The studies we've done is competitive with putting in an existing plant in. It allows us to actually increase the capacity of a plant. So we've actually really designed this project as a retrofit opportunity. So we wouldn't build something brand new. We'd come into an existing plant. We'd probably add anaerobic digestion as a module. We'd look at converting some of the existing lagoons there into high-rate algal ponds. So we're trying to optimise and use something that's already there, so we don't have to build everything new. And we can retrofit this to existing plants to get better performance from them. Once retrofitted, then we can get a lot more treatment capacity out the same size plant, which will allow population growth, will allow industry to develop in those rural situations and give us more treatment performance.
Would a plant like this using the lagoons be built today?
We've actually got a demonstration plant in Helidon at the moment where we're actually doing this. There are a couple of other people dabbling in this around Australia that are just using the high-rate ponds, not the integrated USAB and high-rate algal ponds. Plus they're used in New Zealand. There's plants in America. There's plants similar to this in Spain, so they are becoming more widespread. Not many people are integrating the anaerobic digestion and the algae ponds together, but a lot of people are putting the algae ponds in. So,
where do you think the research will go next, and what would you like to see happen?
Well, we're running the demonstration scale plant out at Helidon, where we've got a large plant, so we're doing proof of concept on that. And Urban Utilities, who run their algae project, they're looking at actually scaling it up to a full treatment plant. And there is some interest from other regional councils. And we're also just looking at optimising the process further and scaling it up. And then we're investigating what to do with that biomass, because we're reducing this harvested algae. It's a really good substrate to do different things with, whether we use it as a biofertiliser, whether we anaerobically digest it to get more methane. If we got enough of it, we could possibly do biofuels. I'm very interested in work that I've been involved with in America, where they're actually converting it to bioplastics, and they're using it as foam in running shoes, and Adidas are using it. And there's quite a big marketing ploy there by the company in America doing it, where they're saying they're cleaning this water, and people see that as a benefit. So they're seeking these products out that have got the biofoam in them from the algae.
It's certainly a fascinating opportunity, Andrew. You must be pretty excited. I've been speaking with Andrew Ward, Research Fellow at the Australian Centre for Water and Environmental Biotechnology at the University of Queensland. Thanks so much for your time, Andrew.
Thank you.